On the runway, a Boeing 747 was fully prepared for takeoff. Through the thick blanket of fog, the captain pushed the thrust levers forward, turned on the landing lights, and the massive aircraft began racing down the strip. It had already reached a speed where aborting takeoff was nearly impossible. But just then, through the fog, a dark silhouette appeared ahead. To the captain's horror, it was another Boeing 747 facing directly toward them on the same runway, just a few hundred meters away. What happened in the next few moments was unthinkable. The question is, how did events reach such a tragic point? Where was air traffic control, and what tiny mistake triggered aviation's deadliest disaster? This heartbreaking story unfolded in Spain's Canary Islands and is remembered today as the Tenerife airport disaster, the worst accident in aviation history. The story begins a day earlier, on March 26, 1977. Pan Atlantic Flight 1736, a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, departed Los Angeles for New York, where it picked up additional passengers before heading across the Atlantic to its final destination, Las Palmas, the capital of the Canary Islands. The flight was fully booked, carrying mostly elderly passengers planning to enjoy a cruise vacation. In command was Captain William Harris, a 56-year-old veteran pilot, alongside First Officer David Collins, age 39, and Flight Engineer Charles Morton, age 46. With them were 13 flight attendants and 380 passengers. Meanwhile, at Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport, another Boeing 747 was preparing for the same destination, KLM Flight 4805. This aircraft was under the command of Captain Johan de Vries, age 50, First Officer Martin Voss, 42, and Flight Engineer Peter Kramer, 48. On board were 11 flight attendants and 235 passengers. Both aircraft were bound for Las Palmas. But fate had something far more tragic in store. At Las Palmas Airport, 2 men planted a bomb in a flower shop. Shortly after, a call came claiming responsibility by a separatist group fighting for independence in the Canary Islands. Just 15 minutes later, the device exploded, damaging the terminal. The airport was immediately shut down. All inbound flights, including Pan Atlantic 1736 and KLM 4805, were diverted to Tenerife's small northern airport. Tenerife was not built to handle such heavy traffic, especially not 2 jumbo jets at once. It had only a single runway, a single taxiway, and a small apron. Soon the airfield became overcrowded. When both 747s landed, visibility was fine. But as the hours passed, fog rolled in from the Atlantic, drifting down from the surrounding mountains. At times, visibility dropped to just 300 meters. KLM's captain decided to refuel at Tenerife, so the aircraft could depart immediately once Las Palmas reopened. But this decision proved costly. His aircraft blocked the taxiway, forcing Pan Atlantic to wait. When refueling finished, the tower instructed KLM to taxi down the active runway to the far end, turn around, and prepare for takeoff. Pan Atlantic was told to follow KLM down the runway and exit via a taxiway to clear the strip. But the fog thickened. Pan Atlantic's crew missed their assigned exit. At the same time, KLM reached the runway's end and lined up for departure. Here, miscommunication became deadly. The tower gave KLM their route clearance, but not explicit takeoff clearance. The captain, however, misunderstood. He advanced the throttles, believing he was cleared for takeoff. His first officer questioned it, and even the flight engineer warned that the other 747 was still on the runway, but the captain pressed on. Meanwhile, Pan Atlantic's pilots suddenly saw blinding headlights racing toward them through the fog. They tried desperately to turn off the runway, but it was too late. The KLM aircraft struck Pan Atlantic at high speed. Its right engine ripped through the Pan Am's upper fuselage, tearing off the roof. The KLM then slammed into the runway and exploded in flames, killing everyone on board. all 248 souls. On Pan Atlantic, the forward cabin was destroyed instantly, but in the rear, some passengers managed to escape through holes in the fuselage. 61 people survived by leaping from the burning wreck, though 335 perished. In total, 583 people died in seconds, making it the worst accident in aviation history. The investigation revealed a tragic chain of events: the terrorist bombing at Las Palmas, the diversion to Tenerife, refueling that blocked the taxiway, worsening fog, poor signage, and above all, the fatal misunderstanding by KLM's captain who began takeoff without clearance. The disaster became a turning point for aviation. Communication protocols were rewritten. The phrase takeoff is now only spoken when actual clearance is given. Radar became mandatory at major airports, and runway markings and lighting were standardized worldwide. Today, Tenerife has two airports, the northern one where the disaster occurred, and a larger southern one built afterward to avoid such conditions. The Tenerife disaster remains a somber reminder of how one misunderstanding, one wrong decision, can change history forever.